Hey everyone, this is Shpan, and today we're looking at the Die Harder mod by mod author Red Rorio the Glen. What does this mod do? It adds alternative scenarios after losing all of your health. So instead of dying and getting a game over screen, you now have a chance to get one of a bunch of new possible outcomes for losing all of your health, which depends on where you were at when it happened, which type of enemies you were defeated by, sometimes the status of your legal reputation in a city or town, and even occasionally being rescued by good-natured actors in the Iliac Bay. It's an awesome mod concept which adds a ton of new fun and intense situations for the player to navigate through, and provides a sense of unpredictability to the game state and story of your character. The mod is customizable, which is always greatly appreciated, allowing for the player to choose the base chance of an alternative scenario happening after death. And so the determining factor of whether or not it triggers is the base chance set in the mod settings, the character's endurance, willpower, and luck. I like how the determining factors are simple to understand, and so it allows the player to build their character with some investment into increasing their chances of surviving after losing all of their health, if they wish to do so. Keep in mind, you're not guaranteed to escape death with this mod unless you decide to increase your chance of survival in the mod settings to 100%. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the potential scenarios you might find yourself in if you do trigger an alternative to death scenario. First, let's look at what happens if you trigger an alternative scenario in the context of being defeated in a dungeon. The player will have a chance of waking up somewhere else in the dungeon, with the added twist of being completely stripped of their equipment and all of their inventory. This is my favorite alternative to death scenario in this mod. It's simple, but creates a really fun and intense situation to deal with. Look at how disorienting it can be in Daggerfall to wake up in the middle of one of these gigantic dungeons and have no idea how to get to the exit. The map is completely unrevealed, and you're often surrounded by a ton of enemies. It really presents a unique twist on Daggerfall's already excellent dungeon delving experience. Now you're sort of working your way backwards, but with no equipment whatsoever, forced to deal with whatever enemies or difficult dungeon layouts that you're dealt with. It was actually way more fun, refreshing, and high stakes than I was expecting it to be, because I realized I never really got to engage with dungeons in this way before. It's a completely new experience. It's especially intense being stripped of any light sources, and because dungeons in Daggerfall don't tend to have a huge amount of loot just sitting around, the decision making and risk assessment becomes super interesting. Should you try to fight an enemy with your bare fists, or use some of your precious spell points to kill a few enemies in hopes that they might drop something valuable, like some armor you can wear, a weapon you can use, or maybe some other useful resources like potions or light sources? It's an awesome new way to experience Daggerfall's dungeons. I can see this mod even being a really interesting fit for permadeath playthroughs, because the player can control how likely it is to even trigger a second chance, but also, as you can see here, the second chance is super dangerous and difficult to survive anyway. It's not just some free escape. It also rewards additional preparation that considers an alternative death scenario, like making sure you have other gear sets stored in your wagon, or only carrying the most essential items in your inventory, or even potentially dropping spare loot somewhere in the dungeon to pick up for yourself later. I really like when mods introduce new reasons for rare build options or choices, and I can also see a situation where a player builds hand-to-hand as a second weapon skill for situations where they're stripped of their weapons from this mod. That would be a pretty interesting consideration, especially in a permadeath playthrough where triggering a second chance with an alternative death scenario would be really clutch and exciting to try and fight your way out of. This seems to be the main alternative scenario that the player will be given if they're defeated in a dungeon, and it's by far my favorite in this mod. This mod has accomplished a new way for players to interact with Daggerfall's dungeons, and it's a truly fun and intense experience. Next up, let's look at what might happen if you lose all of your health in the wilderness. This means any area that isn't indoors or a dungeon, and isn't inside the boundaries of a town or city. Unlike dungeons, there's multiple potential scenarios that have a good chance to play out. First, you might just simply wake up where you were defeated. This is a simple one, but it's a good inclusion because it acts as purely a second chance. I can see this making sense in the rare situation where a non-humanoid enemy like an animal or undead creature defeated you but isn't actually interested in your equipment or interested in eating you. Maybe it lost interest and left you, or maybe it was only defending itself, or maybe even something else scared it off before it could finish you off. Role-playing wise, I like this simple inclusion. The other potential scenario you might get is getting taken to a nearby dungeon depending on the enemy type that defeated you. This is a really awesome idea. Let's say, for example, you were defeated by a vampire, you might be taken deep into a vampire's lair, or some similar undead-infested dungeon. There's really a lot of great flavor in this creative potential scenario. Next up, we have rescues. After losing all of your health, there's a chance of triggering a positive scenario where you're rescued. This can manifest as the player waking up in a safe location like a tavern a few days later. The chance of seeing this type of scenario play out is related to things like your proximity to a safe place, having nearby friendly characters, and even things like ranks and guilds. I did some testing, and it seems like this actually includes friendly characters like the ones that you can pacify in the Language Skills Overhaul mod, which is really awesome. Having a chance to be rescued adds a ton of fun role-playing potential and nice surprises when you thought you died. It also adds additional value to pacifying enemies and adventuring with friendly companions. Lastly, there is another possible scenario where you lose all of your health in a safe location where you're wanted for an active crime or in a castle dungeon, and this can result in you waking up in prison without your equipment. This is another awesome addition to the mod, and a cool thing about it is usually when the player resists a peaceful surrender with the city's guard, it becomes a fight to the death. And if the player fails, it's just a game over and you reload your file. But now, even when being defeated by the guards, you have a chance of keeping the story going. This opens up a lot of fun role-playing potential for a character story, and allows the player to lean more into an outlaw or criminal character concept, or potentially a more fully realized reformed criminal story arc for your character if the court decides to just expel you. There's a couple of other details I want to mention in the outro here really quickly. I know some of my viewers prefer playing with the smaller dungeons options provided in the Unity settings. And if you're one of those players, then you'll also need to pick up the Fixed Dungeon Quest Markers mod by Ghost Putty to make this mod work for you. Overall, I'm really impressed with this mod. Having new ways to keep the story and role-playing going after what was originally an automatic death and reload is a really great addition to Daggerfall. When I saw this mod and before I actually tried it, I thought it was a really cool idea, but I didn't expect the situations it creates to be so fun and interesting. This mod adds a lot to our ability to roleplay in new situations that make the world feel more believable and adds excitement and unpredictability to our character stories. Usually when I record mod showcase videos like this, some of the mods end up as only used for specific types of playthroughs that I want to try, but I think this mod is going to end up as a staple mod in my list. For those of you that enjoy permadeath playthroughs like me, I'm curious to hear how you feel about this one. Do you think it sort of ruins the spirit of a permadeath playthrough, or do you think it complements that style of play? I think for me personally, I do like it as an addition to permadeath playthroughs. However, I think the base chance of activating an alternative to death scenario needs to be really low, and instead have its chance more affected by a character's attributes and game state. Either way, it's such a fun addition to Daggerfall to be given that small chance of survival after what you thought was your death. And that extra layer of unknown outcomes allows the story to keep moving forward and forces the player to adapt to new fun and uncertain situations. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks as always for watching, and if you want to help support the channel, consider subscribing or becoming a channel member through the link in the video description below. I hope I'll see you in the next video, and take care everyone.